So, welcome to our wrapping up call. I'm really happy to have you all here for those who are here live. I really appreciate that. And then, obviously, also all the ones who wrote me in the group or privately that they cannot attend live today. Welcome to watching the replay. Um, yeah, I'm really happy and glad that we were such a nice and lovely large group to explore the different aspects of fascial yoga. I know that you have been from very different experience backgrounds. So some of you already know quite a lot about fascia, and for others, this was quite new. So obviously also what you have been able to take out probably was different. So I'll be very interested to hear about that later on in the Q&A session. For this call, we're going to have three parts. So one is I'll just wrap up the material that we were covering in the experience, also let you know about topics that we haven't been able to cover because it's just been a very kind of short time frame, so we only were able to kind of scratch the surface. So I'm gonna just show you what else there is to integral fascial yoga that you have not seen yet. Then I'll also introduce you to the online teacher training format that I'm running and where we are starting a new round, a guided round soon. And then we'll have a Q&A session where you can ask any questions you have either on the training or on the experience or any other fascia related question that you may have. And then we'll close this call by another little yoga practice that we practice together to wrap everything up. Okay, great. So I like to call fascia the missing link in yoga because that's what it was for me. And that's also what I had as a feedback from many of my students that completed the integral fascial yoga teacher training. Many came back saying, I didn't even know I was looking for that, but I got something that now proves to be what I've always been missing in yoga. So it's always a little bit hard to describe. The ones who know, they know. So it is a little bit like bringing the pieces together, which is actually what fascia does. And yoga really, in many different areas, does address fascia already in a very profound way. If you compare yoga to, for example, gymnastics or some sort of functional training, yoga has a lot more fascial components in some areas than other exercise regimens, but also there is just something missing. And it's a little bit like the fate of fascia, the kind of being overlooked part, because that's what happened in science as well. For a very long time, fascia was just regarded as packaging material and not something very important. It landed on the floor of the dissection labs because they thought it was just packaging material. And it took many, 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 many years until people understood that it's not just packaging material, that it's actually really an important, integral part of our body. And the same, I feel like, is happening in yoga. The problem in lots of modern yoga practices is that in our teacher trainings, we do learn anatomy in a way that's still based on the old anatomical model. Maybe it would be very interesting. I mean, I know lots of you have studied with Zeynep, but other than that, teacher trainings that have not been with Zeynep, um, just write a one in the chat if your teacher training touched fascia at all, and a two if it was not a topic at all, right? So if you were learning about fascia in your teacher training, unless it was with Zeynep, because I know she focuses a lot on that, and there's a lot of her students here, but all the normal traditional trainings, in all my trainings I did, there wasn't a mention of fascia at all, right? So most of you are also saying the two. And that's the problem. So we are learning anatomy in a way that I call the avidya of anatomy. So avidya is the knowledge that is not the truth. That's not a true knowledge, right? And that's what's happening in most teacher trainings. It's not only in yoga, it's in many movement practices. It's also still in many medical and physiotherapy areas. That has changed over the last 10 years a lot. But when we started um, to work with fascia in 2007, 2008, it wasn't there. It was in no book, it was in no training, it was in no, it was nowhere, right? So the thing is, the early anatomists looked at the body basically with the knife. So they were interested in the parts of the body and they were looking at the whole thing as something that they could divide. And naturally, they were cutting along the white lines and they were also cutting away the white stuff that was covering the so-called interesting red stuff. So that's why all the anatomy books up until now, there's very few exceptions, look like this. So you see a lot of red areas and there are some white areas in between. Now the thing is, that's not the truth. Yeah. If we were really looking at the body the way it actually works, everything would be white here because all these red areas, they have their white fascial surrounding layers. Now, the thing is, they didn't cut everything away that was white, but just what they considered to be just packaging material. And due to that, we have a view on anatomy that's completely misleading us and also misleading us in the way we think about biomechanics. Look at the thoracolumbar fascia, for example, here in the lower back. This is a fascial area that is very thick and very dense. So even the early anatomists understood, okay, that's different. That's not just the packaging, that's another structure. So they left it there, they left it connected, and they didn't cut it away. So now we think the lumbar fascia is a structure with that kind of shape in our back, which is not the truth because this shape is part of a whole body tube that runs across the whole torso and actually connects the back with the front and actually is connected into the linea alba and is actually connected in the pelvic floor and in the diaphragm. So the idea of this structure in the back is not correct, but because in early anatomy they've cut the softer structure of the connection away, the real concept of this being a tube has been lost. Same here. If you look at it's the tractus iliotibialis, yeah, this very strong band or ligament on the side of your leg is not a ligament. It's a structure that's actually part of a tube that surrounds the whole thigh. And it just happens to be a lot thicker on the outside than in the rest of the tube. So the anatomists decided the rest of the tube is packaging material and can go away, and that thicker part will stay, which now leads to us thinking there is this ligament-like structure on the side, but it's not. It's part of a tube. And I think you already start to understand that if we think about the body the way it is pictured in the anatomy books, we are basing our knowledge, we're also basing our ideas of biomechanics and alignment and how force transmission on the wrong assumptions. And that's what really in the past 10 years, all the researchers around Dr. Robert Schleip and Carla Stecco and all the others that are the pioneers in this work have been working on to rewrite the anatomy books because it does make a difference. And we do now have, Carla Secco, for example, has written a very, very good anatomy book about the fascial system that really works differently to these kinds of pictures. But I'm very sure most of you still learned anatomy based on pictures like that. And that creates ideas in our head that are not true and that we need to unlearn in order to fully understand how fascia works and how the fascial system and the fascial body actually works. So that's kind of the starting situation for most of us. We did talk about what is fascia briefly in that little crash course. I'm just gonna wrap it up for a second here. So we talk about this three-dimensional network that connects basically every cell, every structure in the body. It surrounds muscles, it surrounds bones, nerves, organs, and it gives the whole system structure and support. You can see here a very nice illustration of the intramuscular connective tissue and the different layers it forms. Yeah, and here you can see, or at least grasp the idea of, this is the muscle, and it's just cut in the cut in square, and here it becomes the tendon. At the very end here, the muscle becomes the tendon. So we don't have a beginning of a muscle or a beginning or an end of a tendon. One really becomes the other. And the fibers in the intramuscular layers, they are more like this, so lattice grade, and the fibers in the tendon, they are parallel. But there is no kind of junction point where you can say this is where the tendon starts and this is where the myofascial surrounding the epimysium or the peri or the endomysium finish. So it really, one becomes the other. The tissue transforms and changes form and function within the body without beginning or end. So it really is the tissue of unity, which is, well, I love that because we do teach so much about unity of body and mind and unity in general in yoga. So to me, fascia really is the tissue of yoga, of connection, of unity. And I think it's really important that we integrate it into our practice and into our teaching. So basically, it's made up of collagen fibers, fibroblasts, and the fluid ground substance. We talked about that. There's a lot to say. So in the teacher training, we have two full modules on the anatomy, on the physiology, on the components of the fascia, how they react. Then there's two full modules on different genetic types of fascia, how the different fascial types react to different types of stimulation. So there really is a lot to say about that. For the scope of our little experience here, that's enough to know. And also, it's interesting or important to understand that it also enables communication through force transmission, but also through other levels. So there is really quite considerable evidence that the prana that we talk about in yoga really runs through the interfascial canals, the interfascial spaces. And I mean, that's something the yogis have talked about in the nadis for many, many years. Only people were always looking for actual canals. But the thing is, it's not the canals, but it's actually the space in between where the energy is transmitted through proton transfer. It's really fascinating. So there's a huge field, right, that we can talk about when we ask what is fascia. For our context here, I would just like to emphasize what's included in fascia. So we have muscular connective tissue. That's what we already saw in this little graph. Then all the tendons, ligaments, joint capsules, organ capsules, that's all fascial tissue in our termination. All the aponeurosis, like the lumbar fascia, like the plantar fascia, belongs to it, but also the superficial and the deep fascia, that's the whole bodysuit layers with lots and lots of sensory receptors in there. Then we have all the loose connective tissue that allows the layers to glide against each other, the sheaths of the nerves and vessels, the retinaculum in the wrists and the ankles, tendon sheaths, but also the periosteum and the intervertebral disc sheath. So the kind of the layering of the discs is also fascial. tissue. So it really plays a crucial role because it's basically part of every body system that we can talk of. And we now also know that the immune system is located in the fascial system. We have lots and lots of body awareness receptors in there, but there's also, we do have a fascial microbiome. We do have influences and interactions with inflammation processes, with cellular health processes. So it really, it's amazing, and it's still a field where we are still learning. So every 2 years, new science comes out. And the interesting thing with fascial training is that as we started to develop that, we really based it on the research that came out. So it's not so much that something has developed and later on it gets researched on to prove what is happening, like in yoga, right? Yoga is ancient, and more and more we get studies that now prove what the old yogis have said for many years. With fascia, it's different. With fascia, we had the situation that we did have the research coming out, and then a few people were sitting down around Dr. Robert Schleib, and we were really looking at these research results and then designing a movement pattern that is based on what we learned from science. So it really is the other way around, which makes it very interesting, but it also means that it changes over time. So there have been certain areas where we at first thought it was like this, and then 3 or 4 years later additional research came out and we were like, okay, no, then it means we will need to change that a little bit. We will need to adapt because we now know it works differently. So we're always working from science based, from what we know from science, and then apply it to the movement practice. So for example, the yin yoga melting stretching science that we know, it wasn't done on yin yoga. It was just a yin yoga type stretch that was happening in science. And then we took the findings and applied it to how would we need to apply this to our stretching practice if we wanted to create the effect that they have seen in the studies. Okay, so it's a little bit the other way around. What we can say for sure is that fascia is not just packaging material. Definitely not. Fascia is absolutely alive, it's adaptable, it changes its structure, it changes even its composition, depending on what you do with it. So fascia can sense, fascia can transmit, fascia can adapt. When we move, your fascia knows, your fascia notices what's going on. Especially your fibroblasts, they notice what is happening in the tissue and they kind of double check, okay, is my tissue well equipped for this kind of movement? If yes, let's keep it like that. If no, let's change the tissue so it's better suited to this kind of movement. So basically, there is a constant building and breaking down of the collagen. Yeah, it's a constant process. The fibroblasts build collagen fibers, and the collagen fibers orient themselves depending on the mechanical impulses that arrive into different structures, into different architectures, depending on what is required in the tissue. Which really means when we go back to that IT band, for example, I'll just bring it back up for you. Here, this one here on this side, babies don't have it. It's not there. It's just a soft tube around the whole thigh. There is no thickening on the side. When the baby starts to crawl, when the baby starts to stand up, when the baby starts to walk, to learn to walk, there is a lot of force transmission happening on the side of the leg. And that's when this tissue starts to form because of the force transmission happening in the tissue. That's why a baby can't just stand up and walk. It actually needs to learn to balance, it needs to learn, and it needs to be patient enough for the structures to build stability. If someone is paralyzed and can't walk anymore, over time, this structure disappears again, because if there's no force transmission, the body is not maintaining the structure. Yeah. Same professional horse riders, they sometimes have a similar structure on the inside, on the adductor side, because of all the force transmission happening for them on the inside of the leg. So the body really adapts to your lifestyle, and this can be good for us and it can be really bad for us depending on how our lifestyle looks like, right? So here, this is demonstrating something we call Davis law, which is really just explaining that. So fascia responds to stimulation, and it responds to understimulation, it responds to training, it responds to overstimulation with different pathways of biochemical reactions in the tissue. In our scope here as yoga teachers, we want to create situations where we have a training situation so that the fascial tissue that has deteriorated because of our lifestyle gets a chance to build back into a more natural and a more healthy structure. And that's basically what we try to do with fascial training, and also all the training principles are integrated in integral fascial yoga. So also with this kind of yoga practice, you can really more or less address the whole body system in order to create a healthy fascial system. So we already talked about the different stimulation impulses that fascia needs to stay healthy. Most of that. We basically have 8 principles in fascial yoga. 7 of them are covered intensely in the online teacher training program. So we have variety of movement. That's something we already touched on in the experience now, where the idea really is to stimulate the tissue in different angles in order to reach as many fibers as possible. Then we have the tensegrity principle. That's something where we really look at this tensegrity model here. Yeah, really important system also to work in every asana, really, in order to create asanas that are stable and light at the same time. You know, the the phrases from the Yoga Sutra, that's really what we're looking at, right? So this is stable and light at the same time if we have our tensegrity built up in a really solid way. So there is a lot we can talk about this. Then we work with the myofascial chains. They have been defined by Tom Myers, basically. I'm sure many of you know about this from other kind of trainings or also manual therapies. So this is there's 2 things to consider about the myofascial chains. One is how do we stimulate the chains in our asanas, which is actually in yoga, it's already implemented quite well. Sometimes we can add some little modifications in order to reach the chains even more fully, but generally we can say that yoga actually does work with the myofascial chains already quite well. The other thing is you can use the myofascial chain model in order to create a balanced class. So this is important for sequencing. You can analyze your asanas and your classes in terms of which myofascial chains are being stimulated in my asanas and in my sequence, and then making sure that you don't miss any myofascial chains, or that you don't have like a very large disbalance between the myofascial chains, because if you use them in a balanced way, your class will feel balanced and the body will feel balanced afterwards. So it's a really helpful tool to plan your classes to work with the myofascial chain system. Then we had the four classical fascia training principles that we talked about. That was fascial stretch, rebound elasticity, and also myofascial self-massage. We had little kind of bits and pieces that we were looking in there. Also the sensory refinement we were talking about in the first day. Again, it's only been like we picked one one pearl out of the whole thing and looked at this. There is much more to say. Each of these principles have a complete separate module in the teacher training, so there is a lot to go deeper in the special topics. And then we have the inner fascial tube, which is working with the fascial diaphragms that are horizontal. So that means the feet, the pelvic floor, the diaphragm, the breath, the core, and also the voice. That's not part of the level one of the online teacher training. There is an additional training for these topics because it's such a huge issue that we are looking at this separately, because otherwise the training would like take forever. So I'm splitting that into two, but that's also a very, very large and beneficial area to work, especially pelvic floor and feet. There's so much fascial components in there, also the breath, that we don't even think about it. And then if we just work with the muscles all the time, sometimes we create more disbalance than we're actually helping the system. So it really makes a lot of sense to incorporate the fascial stimulation into these specific areas, additionally to what you can do to train the strength and the muscles themselves. So just to recap, fascial stretches, we have three different types. Dynamic stretches, that would be vinyasa-like and pandiculation stretches. We have the melting stretches, classic hatha stretches, or the yin yoga stretches. Ideally, they're only at 40 to 60% of the maximum range. And we have the large field of actively loaded stretches in order to reach the tendons with the mini bounces, intentional muscle contraction, and also working with weights. That's something where in the teacher training we really look very deeply into it to understand the difference and also to be able to apply it to any asana, right? So if you have understood the basic concept, then you can apply it to any stretching position, any asana, and can adapt and modify the specific movement patterns. Then we had rebound elasticity. Again, there's two different types, the frog-like movements and the kangaroo-like movements. We're using the elastic capacity of the fascial tissue in order to create crimp, elasticity, and also injury resilience. It's a very important principle in terms of prevention of injuries. It's also the most difficult principle to understand. It's the one that takes up the largest space in the teacher trainings in terms of questions, but also in terms of me giving feedback on your movement, because the line can sometimes be very fine between, no, it's still a very muscular movement, and yes, now it's a fascial movement. Now you found it. And sometimes it really takes some time and some kind of digging a little deeper and coaching people into this to really find that difference. Once you found it, it's a little bit like learning how to ride a bike. Once you know how to do it, you can't understand how you could ever not be able to do it. But before you learned it, it's like a huge thing, right? So it's a little bit like the same with rebound elasticity, but it's so powerful if you learn to execute it in the right way that it is really worth the time digging deeper to understand the difference. For rebound elasticity, it's also important to say that this is something you should not do every single day, because it has a huge impact on the fibroblasts and they need a little regeneration phase to rebuild the tissue before the next stimulation arrives. So you should only do it like 2 or 3 times a week and just leave space for regeneration in between, and also have these little pauses in between even the single session. So don't do 50 jumps, do 7 or 12, and then you have a little break, and then you come back in order to allow the tissue to rehydrate and to kind of the crimp to creep back so that there's no injuries, right? So this is important. Also, in terms of somebody was asking contraindications in rebound elasticity, we certainly do have certain contraindications like pregnancy, like highly overweight, like also with the osteoporosis. It's good, but you wouldn't want to start with the full impact. So there is a number of things that you would like to consider when you work with that principle. Same for myofascial self massage, actually, especially for the slow rolling technique. We have again 3 different types for the myofascial self massage. The gentle and sensory technique is really a very soft one. You can work on that with everyone. But the slow and releasing, especially if you use harder rollers, can be really tricky in osteoporosis, especially if you work like on the spine and the rib cage. You want to be really careful there. So I always suggest for these areas with elderly people to use modifications on the wall so that you're not putting the full body weight onto the roller, because that can really be tricky in these conditions. And then the fast toning technique, that's also an interesting one in terms of genetic fascial types. So we do have different genetic types. Some people have genetically softer fascia, and some have genetically harder or stiffer fascia. And obviously, they need different types of stimulation in order to find into their personal balance. So even within a class, it may make sense to modify the exercises for the hypermobile person to do different stuff than the hypomobile person, because obviously their goals, like the body balance goals, are different. And same with the fast and toning. Rolling, that's really working with the proprioception, but can also be helpful in toning the tissue. So you wouldn't want to do too much fast rolling in a person that's already very stiff and in their fascial tissue, for example. Yeah, so there can be modifications and adaptations individually depending on the type of the fascia that you have. And then the last section was the sensory refinement. We did that on the first day. There is a lot that you can dive into here, especially with working with sound and vibrations. We do that a lot in fascial yoga because it's so powerful and so easy, really. And then also these undulations and micro movements that are really working to differentiate movements to such a level that you can only do them when you are completely at home in your body. So for those, the way there is often more important than the actual reaching the goal. So finding back into your own body is what's important here. Right. So the invitation is, I think you already noticed, it's it's a huge field. It's a small universe that you entered when you started to open the fascia door. I hope you took something from this experience that you can apply straight away. And then there is much, much more to explore. And I'd like to invite you into the teacher training, which is really a deep dive into fascia science. But I think you already noticed I'm kind of digesting or diluting the science in a way so that it can be easily understood. So it's not so hard to understand or to follow. I'm kind of translating the science into easier language. And also we work a lot on, okay, and how can you bring this into your language so that you can tell your students what's important for them to know, but also keep the deeper stuff just for your background that you need for teaching, but not necessarily for telling the students in that detail. So it's a comprehensive training. It's 15 weeks. You do have lifetime access because I hate it myself if I buy something and then after XYZ time it disappears. I think that's awful because sometimes life comes in between or you just want to move back or recap. So in my programs you always have lifetime access and it's science-based but still with a very embodied approach. So I really like yoga classes to stay yoga classes. I don't like it so much when it becomes a fitness class, and there is a full justification that in some uh, atmospheres or whatever, this is the style of yoga and that's totally fine. But I really like to be able to bring fascia into yoga even if it's not a sportive yoga style in the beginning, and still be able to use rollers and to work with the fascia and keep the atmosphere of a yoga class. So it's pre-recorded materials. In every module you have theory and practical sessions. So it's 15 full 75 minutes yoga practices, full classes. You have exercise libraries for all the fascial exercises that we have. We have teaching tips and also lots of additional resources like books and additional videos and music and whatever there is. Whatever I find useful for my teaching, it's always added in there, and it's also growing. So whenever there's an update or something is recorded freshly or whatever, you will just be updated. Yeah, you don't have to pay again or anything. This is just this is included. Now, normally this is a self-paced program. So basically you buy the program, you have the 15 modules, you do it in your own time, and that's it. There is the option to have an individual supervision package, which is 4 individual calls with me. They are 30 minutes. And we're looking at specific areas that tend to be difficult, like rebound elasticity, like the different types of fascial stretching, like the myofascial chains, class sequencing. So we're going to look deeper, and also obviously all your questions are answered. This time I'm running a group experience. So we're all starting at the same time. It starts on the 20th of November. And then we have group live calls every 3 weeks to discuss questions, move deeper into the topics, but also to do kind of breakout sessions and process the material so that you are talking about it, because that's what I figured. That's the moment where you really understand whether you got it or whether you just thought you got it. So that's really helpful. I did that many times before. Usually it happens once a year normally that I do a guided round, and it's always really helpful for people to have these group calls either with other students and interact with the other teachers. We have a support group on Telegram or on WhatsApp. That depends a little bit on how large the group is and who likes WhatsApp best or Telegram. I like to have the group in one area, but sometimes it doesn't work. So we'll work that out as a group as we start. It starts on the 20th of November. Preparation is from the 13th, but that's really just like, okay, making sure you have a foam roller and making sure you have a mat and some blocks and whatever. It's not difficult preparational stuff, but just making sure you have all the materials. Okay, so why should you learn from me is always an interesting question. Basically, I think you probably figured from the way I was explaining the method before, I was right there at the birth of fascial training, because I happened to be close to Dr. Robert Schleib when the whole thing was created. So I did a movement training with his wife, Devo Müller, in 2008, which was just after the first ever International Fascia Congress was happening in 2007. So we were just lucky and happy that we had Robert as our anatomy teacher there. And obviously, he was talking fascia front, back, and left and right and all the time. So we had lots and lots of insight at these very, very early stages when really nobody knew about fascia at all. And then I got really hooked. I found this so interesting, and I really figured like, okay, this is important for our own healing journey, and also it's so important to bring these kinds of pieces together that I intensified my studies with them, and then I was soon asked to work together with them and develop the whole fascial training system, which led to the creation of the Fascial Fitness Association, which I started together with Robert's wife and another colleague of ours. You can see us here at one of the congresses. And what we were doing really was creating these fascia training principles from the science that Robert was bringing from the lab. And then over time, we started really, it was like we didn't even have any marketing running. We were just, because we were there and we were sharing this at the congresses, we were just asked to create trainings. And that's how the whole thing kind of started to evolve. For a long time, we've been traveling the world teaching teacher trainings on fascia training in many different disciplines all over the globe. Then COVID hit, we stopped all that. And I had already in parallel started to bring this more into the yoga path, because the way we were teaching it, it was really for fitness professionals, it was for physiotherapists, massage therapists, it was a very broad target group, which is nice. But I could always see that the yoga teachers, it was different and difficult to transfer it into the classes, because it was like sometimes it seemed too far away from yoga. And I figured it may seem far away, but it's so close and so important. So I started to create the fascial yoga teacher trainings, which I was running in parallel. And then obviously, when COVID hit, we started to work on all this online. Um, Now we are mainly teaching it online for the reason that it has become so profound. In the beginning, we had like 4-day trainings, and that was it. But now it would never fit into 4 days. Yeah, you see 15 modules, it's just not possible. And for that reason, the online version is just more accessible for people. Also, I really like the fact that you can apply the stuff directly in your classes. So you learn something, you learn a new principle, you learn new exercise components, and then your homework is always try it out in your classes directly. So it gets bit by bit and step by step, it integrates into your teaching straight away. Whereas when we had these kind of compact trainings earlier, people were very often very like interested and very intrigued, but it was like so much that it didn't really land. And with these online formats, we just have more time to always come back and revisit and revisit, and it just the quality, I feel, is better. But it's important that you get feedback. I really feel like it's really important that you get feedback on your own movement, because sometimes the differences are just, as I said, so very fine. So that's why I think I'm actually a good choice to, to to learn from, because I've just been there from the beginning. I have a science background myself. I studied pharmacology, so I can read studies, and I do know all the scientific background. But still, my heart is very much spiritual, and it's like my life mission is always to bring the two together, to bring science and spirituality, to bring science and embodiment and somatics together. So that's really what my work is about. I've also written a book on the topic, so maybe some of you have already read it. It's called The Comprehensive Guide on Fascial Yoga, and we'll work on this in the teacher training as well. So it really is like the the like your workbook is the book. So before we start into the movement, I'll just give you a short overview on the module so that you have an idea of what this is all about. Basically, we are just running along the principles. We have a short phase of settling in and then also setting the scene. Also in terms of yoga philosophy, how does it all fit in? Then we have the different anatomical models. We talk about the video of anatomy in great detail. Then also in the anatomy, physiology, the different models. And then we have the fascia types, like I said, also the adaptability of fascia, um, and then the specific principles in detail. And we close with class sequencing and assists. And if you have like the guided round, will also, you will be submitting classes. It's not an exam, but we'll look at class sequencing and you'll also get feedback on that. So, yeah, here are just a few participant voices of the first classes. Usually the tone is always like, I didn't expect it to be like that. Oh, this is very interesting. This feels completely different to what I practiced before. And then they usually are very happy and take it from there. And also the feedback from the students, it's always really so touching when you hear that people come back home to their bodies and come back to feeling and really bringing elasticity back. I have lots of people who work with elderlies. There was some question from somebody in the group, and it's amazing what you can achieve even in bodies that have been neglected for so long. Fascia is adaptable for as long as you live. It doesn't matter when you start, it adapts to what you do to it. And especially in elderly, the progress they often make when you start to work with fascia is just amazing. So normally the training is 999. Now we have in the guided round, we have a few bonuses that are added, like the group calls, like the community group, and the kickoff call that we have. So basically, we are running on this price. I added the supervision package that I explained earlier on into the package. That's for free if you book within the next 24 hours. So whoever already knows this is good, this is for me, then act quickly, because then you get the 4 individual calls with me for free. I can't give it to everyone because my calendar would explode then, but I'll open this for like the first fast movers in the first 24 hours. You will get this for free. And because we are running this guided round, and I really believe this method needs to go out into the world, you're getting it for the special experience price for 555 this round. So if you are booking within the next 24 hours, this even includes the supervision package. If you book later on, you have the 555 with just the group calls, but this is just for this round. Otherwise, the price will go back to the normal 999, which is just a normal learn by yourself price normally. Right, so this I already told you, you can get the special bonus if you're quick. And now I would like to open for Q&A, if you have any. So I'll open this. I already saw a question here in the chat. Let me just check that. The name and author of the Good Anatomy book. Yeah, that's Carla Stecco. She's a wonderful lady. She was also in one of the pictures we just saw. And she is one of the leading anatomy professors in fascia research. She's at the University in Padua in Italy. And she has written a book, it's called The Fascial System, The Anatomy of the Fascial System. And it's a wonderful book. You just need to be kind of science loving and have a good stomach, because it doesn't work with graphics. It works with actual pictures from the dissections, which is great. because a graphic is a graphic and the reality is something else, and you can really see reality in her book. But if you're like a little bit sensitive, then maybe it's a little bit hard to digest. But it's a wonderful book, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, Adrienne? Yeah,
Yes,
just
thank you
unlocked.
so much. I have a few questions. One, the first is, can you tell me what the cost in US dollars would be?
Yeah, it's I can check it out. I think
Okay,
it's a little bit more. Let me just check it. US dollars. Yeah. So it's actually less. So 555 euros. It's 640.
okay.
Yeah.
My next, that's really wonderful of you. That's a really generous,
It is. It's a bit
it
stupid,
really is.
but once in a while I do it like that. So yeah,
Yeah, well,
and
that's great.
I love the community, and I know, I mean, I'm a yoga teacher myself. I had the luck to be in positions where it's easy, but I know that it's really making your living as a yoga teacher is not so easy. And then I
Uh-huh.
think it's just, I think it's so important. So once in a year, I really want to offer it for a price where it's just accessible and everybody can do it. And yeah, that's my karma yoga piece.
Well, that's wonderful. Did you, I knew you said 600 and something, but I forgot what the something is.
41.
41. Okay, I got to write that
I
down.
guess it's probably depending on the exchange
Exchange
rate,
rate.
but something
Mhm.
like that. Yeah.
Okay. Um, I do have questions, a couple of questions. One is in the second practice that we did, the second day,
Yeah.
you did a breath practice,
Yeah.
and I couldn't quite get it from the video, but I was thinking, is this Kapalabhati?
It's a good prep for Kapalabhati. It's the thing is, in most, I mean, whenever you talk about yoga, it depends very much in which lineage and which tradition you studied. But in many traditions, Kapalabhati is taught with an active participation of the stomach muscles. So it's taught as a connection of work with your belly in order to move the breath. And what we're
Mhm.
doing is the other way around. So we're working with the diaphragm, and that creates a movement in the belly. So it's a really good preparation for Kapalabhati because it really releases the diaphragm more than pumping more energy into it, and especially on an emotional level. This is another big field which we cannot touch, neither in this nor in the teacher training. I have another level that's just on fascia and emotions, but just shortly, a lot of emotion gets stored and stuck in the diaphragm. Yeah, so the easiest way to explain it, if you are scared or if something bad happens, what do? You stop your breath, right? And these kinds of micro impacts, they get stuck in the diaphragm. And the diaphragm in most Westerners moves only 5 centimeters, whereas a healthy diaphragm would move 15 centimeters up and down. So the diaphragm trampoline breath is a really good technique to release these kind of stuck tensions in the diaphragm that are emotional but that are also physical. Because if your diaphragm only has this little amplitude, it's an immobilization of your respiratory system. And immobilization leads to adhesions, loss in gliding, blah, blah, blah. So that's a way to bring more elasticity back into this area. And you can use it as a prep for Kapalbhati, but it's a different way in.
Yeah, it's- that's really interesting to me. Um, how, I mean, you don't have to tell me now, but what's very interesting is how would you cue that?
Yeah, just let's read the sound. So it's
Yeah,
really just you shoot the p out. Yeah, like a really explosive, and then it happens, right?
yeah,
The
yeah,
diaphragm there's no other way than to that this movement is created, but you're not creating it with your brain, but it's created reflectively, which is, yeah, it's just a different neurological pathway, but it's also a different physical effect.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I also, I hope I'm not monopolizing
That's all
time,
right.
but I have other questions. Um, so one of my other questions, one of the classes that I teach a big variety of classes, but one of them is adaptive yoga, and it's really like chair yoga, and it's for people who can't like get down on the ground. They can't lie down on the ground and then get back up. So would I be able to implement some of the techniques, the fascial techniques, because all of these people are very stiff.
Yeah.
All of them have, are probably very dehydrated in terms of their fascia.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. You can, for all of the exercises, you can have modifications. And that's also so nice in the guided round because then we can talk about it in the live calls. Because sometimes I already mention the modifications in the exercise videos, but sometimes not. And then very often in these guided groups, people come back and say, "Oh, I like this exercise, but I couldn't do it with that kind of person because she has that, and I couldn't do it with that person because she has that." And then in class, I can give you even more feedback because you can modify everything. You can work with the roller on a chair, you can work with the roller on the wall, you can use a chair to modify most exercises. You can use rebound elasticity. I just showed you like one simple first exercise, but you can also jump on seated on a chair,
Yeah.
right? So there is like millions of variations, and we always build the exercises like from the very, very first step, and then it moves to the full exercise. So you can then just choose which parts still work and which you may have to leave out for that person, but you can still stay with the modification.
Okay, I have two more quick
Yeah,
questions.
that's okay.
Thank you. One is I was really, really interested in using the fascial chains for sequencing. And you said that was like a separate thing because it was like too much for this
No,
one training.
no, the sequencing is part of the module one of this training. What I have
Hmm.
separated is all the diaphragmatic
That's
ones,
what it
like
was. That's what
like
yes,
breathe
that
and
piqued my
pelvic
interest.
floor and stuff, because that's again, I would have been left off with I don't know what 25 or 30 modules, so I figured that's not something that you can sell.
Okay.
So
I
that's
thought that
why
was
it's
really,
separate.
really
Yeah.
interesting. That's what it was. I made a special note there because I
Yeah.
was like, ooh, that is
Yeah.
really interesting to me.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a separate training at another time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
My last, hopefully my last question will be the live calls, because if I do this, it would be really important to me to be able to attend the live calls. On the West Coast in the US, unfortunately, in the US. Um, and I just wondering, like, what would the day and time be
Yeah.
for live?
What I usually do is that I don't fix it in advance, but I discuss it with the group. And sometimes we find a day and a time that works for like most of the group. Sometimes we do it like, okay, we have like two different options, and one call is in at this time and the other is at this time. There's always recordings. You can always submit questions, but of course it's nicer if you can be there in person. There's no
Yeah.
question about it. So usually we find a way that works for the group. The other thing is, as I said, if you have the if you're clear anyway, then book within the next 24 hours, because you then get the 4 personal calls with me, and they will definitely be obviously in your time zone because otherwise we couldn't do them. And then you could still kind of collect your questions for those that are too difficult to just submit. and have them there. So usually we find a way that works for everyone.
Okay, great. What
Even
time
for
is
the
there?
Australians, it's always a kind of a little bit of a juggling, but
Yeah,
so far it's always worked out.
yes. What time is it for you right now?
Right now it's 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for being here. All right. Thanks. That
Yeah,
was
thank you.
pretty
It's
much
actually
it.
good for me because then my son is in bed and nobody disturbs me, and I like it that way.
Okay. And the link to for the next 24 hours to
Yeah,
say yes.
yeah. You just
is-
received that, so you have the link,
Okay.
and then yeah, you just
All right.
off you go.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. You're welcome. So Christine had a question.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes,
Oh, sorry, my video's not working.
never mind.
Um, my question is that I'm not formally teaching yoga. I'm a Pilates instructor. I've done your fascial training specialist course before, but I'm looking at this to incorporate it into not only my own training, but to help others with inflammatory arthritis, fibromyalgia, osteoarthritis. And I'm just wondering if these techniques, if there's any research done that would help ease the chronic pain um, and achy joints all the time
Yeah.
that
So
people have.
yeah, there is different layers to that question. What we definitely know is that we do have an anti-inflammatory effect on certain types of stretches. So yes, that I can definitely assure. We don't have lots of studies on fibromyalgia, although more and more and more the research points towards a strong connection with fascia, but we're not yet in a situation where we can prove or demonstrate a strong link. However, especially in the last years, there's been a lot of research done on the correlation of emotions and early childhood trauma and fascial kind of problems. And there has been a specific correlation between early childhood trauma and a reduced pain threshold in your myofascial system. So we're getting closer, but we're not yet in a situation where we can have a strong correlation. However, I can just from my own experience say that lots of fibromyalgia patients really love the work and they say they absolutely benefit. Not all of them, but I would say around from the ones that have been working with me, around 70 to 80% have a subjective feeling of really progress and feeling better with this. But this is not a study; it's just my personal.
No, I realize that. I know there isn't much research because I'm a patient
Yeah,
partner for arthritis research on the board, but I'm always looking for opportunities to not only help myself with different types of movement out there and practices to help myself, but also to help other people and to impart that knowledge within some of the participation that I do with the research studies.
absolutely. And yeah, I mean, rubber is always open to things like that. So that can also be a path to go down. So if you are in that area, then sometimes that can also be valuable. And also, especially you also talked about chronic pain here in your question in the chat. We do know that lots of chronic pain situations have a strong correlation to the nervous system. From
Yeah.
chronic pain being stress, right, and having an impact on the nervous system, which then backfires and has another kind of tightening effect on the fascial system, which then worsens the chronic pain situation. So working on that is definitely a good idea. And then also, um, with all these kind of vibrational and micro movements and undulations, there is a lot of tension moving out of the tissue that promotes chronic pain. So there is no, I mean, it's always try and error really, but there is many people benefited from it, and it's always worth a try because there's no side effects. The worst that can happen is that they feel more at home in their body. Okay, so that's good. And
Yeah.
very often they then start to realize, okay, this is because, and I need to change this and that in my life. And then maybe that actually made the change, but your practice made them to even start to process it that way.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Zainab, how much of the training involves props and rollers? Do we have to attend all the training? Okay, so as the myofascial self massage part of the training is one of 15 modules, which is I think the part that where it belongs. It's a very good support system, but it's not the only thing fascia needs. Maybe if you follow me on Instagram, you sometimes see me ranting about myofascial release being fascial training, because it's not. It's it's something that you can do and it's valuable, but the movement part to me is not equally important, but it's much more important. But it's also important not to leave the myofascial release out completely, because it does have its relevance. So it's one module out of 15. In the practical sessions, there will be rolling parts more or less in every session, but not like in great detail. It's just in terms of having a complete practice. But from in terms of the content of the program, it's one of 15 modules. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, and I just wanted to add that I've been working with a fascia therapist who's Turkish, and she also trained with Robert Schleip and Tom Myers at times. And I was really curious, how do we adapt this to yoga postures? And I'm really happy that you've taken this on, because it's not easy to figure out.
Yeah, especially also with the props. I think sometimes it can be like suddenly it feels off, and then you take the roller, and then there's all this disturbance in the class, and then people start chatting, and then it hurts, and they're like, "Oh my God," and you're like, "Oh my God, what happened to my yoga class?" And it's really, I developed some tools that kind of takes this away. So if you combine the rolling with breath work, or if you combine the rolling with sound work, you take everything of that away, because people can't chat when they're
Super.
sounding and things like that. So it does need some sort of preparation, and making sure you incorporate the tools in a way that it doesn't break the flow of the class, but it can be done in a way that it's still nice.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks.
Right, anyone else? Did I miss any questions here? No, I think that was that. Anyone else? I think Mary, you're unmuted. I don't know if that's on purpose. Maybe not. Okay. Right. Okay. So if all questions are answered for now, let's just close. It's already quite late, but let's just have at least a little bit of a movement practice to finish this evening or lunch or whatever it is in your time zone off. And then, as I said, you already got the email with the 24-hour deal. Then generally the registration is open until the 15th, but the supervision deal is only for the next 24 hours. And then if you have any questions that arrive later, or also for the ones who are in the replay, you can always email us and we'll answer your questions also on email for sure. Right, okay. So I'll switch cameras. And then let's just stretch ourselves out a little bit to close all this. I think we're gonna start in a standing position as we've been sitting so long now in this call. Okay. So just take a moment to land on your mat. And also to bring the energy down. You have now been thinking and listening and been in your brain for quite a while. So just reach your arms up overhead. And then you just sway from left to right. Feel your feet on the ground and feel your fingers reaching up into the sky. And then inhale, you're gonna reach up, and exhale, you just bring the energy down. And inhale, you're gonna lift the arms up again. And exhale. Bring the energy back down. One last time. And from there, just find a good stance. Find your Tadasana. Find your contact to the floor. Maybe you want to wiggle your toes and your feet for a moment. Maybe roll them in and out so they really are awake and have a good contact point to the floor. Roll your shoulders. And then I just want to show you a little bit how you can work with the tensegrity model. So just imagine within yourself you have this same system. So you have bones that would be the wooden sticks, and you have elastic tissue, which is your fascia, but also your muscles. And now imagine these elastic components get totally loose. So what happens is that you sink together. If they loosen completely, you would be down on the floor. We're not going to go that far. But you just lose your posture, right? And just take a moment to sense how that feels and how your body tells that's off. That's not a good position to be in. I'm sure your body is telling you straight away in different areas that's not a good place to be in. And then let these elastic bands tense up softly so that you come back up into a stable, upright position that's stable and light and doesn't cost a lot of energy. And then let's overdo the tension bit. Let's press down the big toe and the pinky toe on the outside of our heels. Let's lift our kneecap. Let's lift our pelvic floor. Let's lift the pubic bone. Let's really press the shoulders down. Let's lift the top of your head and just overdo it a little bit. Let every cue you just do a little bit more than you would usually do. And now you're in overtone. Probably your body again tells you straight away that this is not a good place to be in. Many people live like that. And then release just what is too much to come back to floating balance that's easy and stable without costing you a lot of energy. Very good. From there, rub your hands together. And then you're gonna just welcome your body. Say hello to your body. And then also in your lower back. And then down the legs, just an easy forward fold. And then let yourself just hang down with a heavy head, heavy shoulders, heavy arms. And let the breath flow out. Inhale, stroke up the front of your legs, straighten your back, and exhale all the way back down. One more time. Inhale, stroking the legs up, and exhale all the way down. And bend your knees, and with the next exhalation, you come all the way up. Inhale, take your arms overhead, and then you take your right wrist with your left hand, and you cross your right leg in your back. So make sure the pelvis is level, yeah? So usually there is a little bit of a twist when you bring the back towards, when you cross the back and the leg in the back. Now bring it back here with the hip bones facing forwards. And then you pull on your right wrist and you're gonna lean over. So you're gonna have a full side stretch, full lateral line stretch. Very gently bounce in. It's super soft. And then release the position. Switch hands. Right hand grabs left wrist. Left leg crosses in the back. Bring your pubic bone towards the front. Bring your hip bones facing forward. And then lean over. And just let the pelvis move out towards the left. So you have a full lateral line stretch. And again, softly bounce inwards. While you keep the tensegrity, and you're not collapsing here, yeah? It's still, you still have that tensegral posture. And gently releasing the position. Roll your shoulders. And then move towards the front third of your mat if you're not already there. Inhale, lift your arms up overhead. And exhale, fold forward. And inhale, lengthen your back. Exhale, all the way back down. Now bring your hands onto the floor or on blocks, depending on the length of your arms. And bring your right leg backwards. Big step here. Your foot is facing backwards. Your heel is reaching backwards. Your top of your head is reaching forwards. You're gently bouncing down with your pelvis. From there, bring the back knee down to the floor. Activate your core, lifting up. And now bring the fingers back here. So again, you want to reach the full front line. In order to reach the full front line, you need to put your foot down on the back of the foot. Very good. And then from there, bring the hands back down. And then lift the right knee. All the weight goes into your right arm and you lift your left arm up. Rotate your arms a little bit in the shoulders. And then you're gonna roll the arm. Very nice. And last time, bring your hands back down. Put your knee on the floor. Bring the other knee back and come into all fours position. Take the blocks away if you were using them and allow your back to just move. And now take a moment to just feel the difference in your right side and in your left side. You probably feel quite off. Just notice. Very good. Then tuck your toes, bring your hands forwards a little bit, roll your back, come back to your heels, and then dive through and open your front line. Let the tongue come out. Inhale, roll back onto your toes, and exhale, dive through. Last time. Now this time stay here. You're going to look back over your left shoulder, and you're just going to look back at your professional life. What did make you want to become a yoga teacher? What did make you want to work with people? Inhale back to center. Exhale, watch back over your right shoulder. Which teachers did you already learn with? Who influenced you? And then come back to center. Tuck your toes and lift yourself up into downward facing dog. You're going to walk a little bit on the spot. And then very gently walk your way forwards towards your hands. Let yourself dangle down here. Let the head be heavy. And then move a little bit to the right. And a little bit to the left. And you're going to work with all the diagonal lines in your back. Very good. From here, stroke up your legs, straighten your leg. Come back on the back side. Inhale. Once again, come up, straighten your back all the way down. And the last time. And then once again, you're going to bring the blocks in if you're using them. Take a big step back with your left leg. Find your position first. Knee is on top of your heel. The left heel reaches backwards. The top of your head reaches forwards, and your pelvis very softly bounces downwards. It's an inquiry in the tissue. It's not about going deeper. Next exhalation, place the left knee down, activate your core, lift up through your arms, bring the fingers towards the back and open the front line. Place the back of the foot onto the mat in order to reach the full front line. On the next exhalation, bring the hands back down to the blocks or the mat. Lift your left knee, all the weight moves into your left hand. Open your right arm and rotate in your shoulder. From here, let the arm drop and raise it back up again. And then bring the hand backwards. Place the knee down. Bring the other knee back in. Blocks move to the side. Roll your back. And now feel the difference. After you've done the second side. Allow this movement to be really intuitive. Very good. From there, come back into a seated position on your heels. Roll your shoulders. And then just allow yourself to support yourself on your hands. Open your chest. Move one shoulder forwards and then the other. And come back up into a seated position. Connect down to the floor through your shins and up to the ceiling through the top of your head. And then just bring your right hand up in front of you. And then just consider any objections you may have and moving forwards as a teacher, whether it be this training or something else, it doesn't really matter. We're always on a path. We always want to develop and grow into our full potential in order to serve our students best. And sometimes there is just our own stuff holding us back. And whatever it is that holds you back right now, professionally or personally, it doesn't really matter. Call it to your fingertips. And then you're going to take your other hand and pull back on your index finger until you feel a stretch. And then you explosively just let it go. And whatever was sitting there, whatever objection, whatever block, whatever limitation, flies away. It explodes into flowers or hearts or whatever. And you take the next finger. Any objections, any limitations, any blocks that sit here, you pull the finger back until you feel a stretch and then let it go. The letting go happens. What you need to do is the pre-stretch. You need to stretch yourself a little bit in the other direction and then off you go. Next finger. Very good. It's also a very good exercise for all those people who are working on the computer a lot and he gets so stiff here. We're going to take the other hand. Another round of objections and limitations. Call them to your fingertips in whatever area of your life they are kind of blocking you. And then again, you take the index finger, pull it back until you feel a stretch and just let it go. The next one. Let it go. And the next one. And the last one, just gather everything there is for the little pinky finger, pre-stretch, and let go. Very nice. Once again, connect yourself with the floor, with the earth, with the sky, and connect with your purpose as a teacher. What is it that you share with your students, that you share with the world, that can only be delivered to the world because you chose to become a teacher? There is so much that you can learn from others, but there's also that part that's just you, that only you can deliver. What is it? And that's like a very ancient knowledge. Gonna come into a seated position on your blocks. And we are gonna call in this ancient wisdom with a little breathing technique. That's called the cave wind. And we'll develop it from the breath we already had when we were in a cobra. We were like, and this time we're gonna keep our tongue in. We just go on the exhalation. The inhale just comes to you whenever it's ready, and on the exhalation you open your mouth, and then You start to play with that sound. You start to play with your mouth. It's like this. Wait for the in breath till it comes by itself. The exhalation you modulate. Wait for the inhalation. Don't draw the breath in, let it happen naturally. And maybe your body wants to respond. If the body is just offering gentle movement as a response to the breath, just let it happen. Just connect to that old wisdom of the earth, the old wisdom of the sky, that old message that wants to talk through you. And just gently let the body respond with some sort of movement. Whatever arrives is fine. There's no right or wrong. It doesn't have to be symmetrical or logical. It doesn't have to be a name. And gently bring it to an end for this moment, knowing well that there may be more to explore at a later time. And then just take your blocks out underneath you and you're going to place them square about 20 to 30 centimeters apart, and make sure you have your balls with you, and you're gonna take them out of the sock or the whatever is keeping them together, so that you have two single balls. And then you're gonna position yourself over the blocks so that the first block is just underneath your shoulder blades, and then the second one is for your head. So this is meant to be comfortable. If it's not, jiggle around so that you find a position where you can open up your chest in a comfortable way. Your legs can be any position, either like this, or you go into butterfly, you just stretch them out. It doesn't really matter. Find a position that's comfortable for you. And you're going to open up your arms to the side with the palms facing upwards. And then you're going to offer your gift, your voice to the world through the sound of ah. Going to inhale together. Ah. So you're going to sound or sing the sound of ah into the world. Let the inhale arrive naturally. Ah. One more time. Let the inhale arrive naturally. Ah. Gently take the blocks out underneath you with as little disturbance as possible. Coming back into supine position. And now you take your two balls and place them underneath your glutes. You'll find a spot that's nice. And then you just dropping your weight onto the balls. If it's too intense, look for another spot that's not so intense. Find a spot that works for you today. And allow yourself to melt into the contact with these balls. To not resist. To not resist your next step, to not resist your next transformation, to not resist your next yes or no, whatever is right for you on your path. Trust the process and the universe and surrender into the contact with the ball. There's no need to control anything. Just relax into the contact with the balls. Keep breathing naturally, consciously. We could stay here for a while longer, but considering the time, I'm gonna take the balls out with as little movement as possible. Just take them out to the side, roll them out, and then surrender into this new contact with the floor. It will feel very different to lying on the floor that you know. From there, just take a moment to integrate in Shavasana. very gently start to move again, wrapping up this class and also wrapping up our time together in this little experience. Just stretching out and yawning and sounding and breathing, doing whatever feels right now to close this session for today. Take your time and also listen to what your body wants to complete this practice. Oh. Here we go. And then just allow yourself to come back into a seated position. In your own time, don't rush yourself. Maybe you want to just touch your body to close the session once again. It's always a nice end to just be with your body, also with your face, with your head. Bring your hands together in front of your chest. And then just give yourself a full smile, letting it travel through your whole body. Let yourself be filled with your own smile and how nice that feels. And then gently open your eyes. And then we're coming to an end for this little experience. So thank you so much for joining and for being here in the live, but also in the group, for your questions, for your interest. And then I'm looking forward to seeing you in the teacher training, diving a lot deeper. If you have any questions, you can still ask them in the group or via email. And then have a good evening or lunch or end of the day, whatever it is, until I see you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Yes,
Bye-bye.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you again. If
Thank
I
you.
have any trouble with the link, I'll email you.
Yes, absolutely.
Great, thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good night.